back to another episode. I'm so excited. I know I say this every single week, but doing the research was so fun and coming up with this idea and I just love this podcast so much. I'm so glad I started it, and I'm so glad that you guys are enjoying it as well. And yeah, I'm just so grateful. But yeah, you've obviously read the title, I assume. And today we are talking about finding your people and why the right people matter. And, I think we all know that saying of you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so I had this idea of making this episode for the podcast, and I thought, well, all of this research is just going to say, yeah, it's important and you are happier, and that's kind of the conclusion. But I did stumble upon some very interesting research, so I decided to make this episode after all. So yeah, obviously we are going to dive into a little bit of the research just because, as always, I like to back up what I'm saying with some studies and with just some other scientific goodies, and then we get into a little bit more action-based stuff. But yeah, I'm very excited. So let me give a brief introduction of the topic. We all know, and I think you can feel that with yourself and with other people, is that humans are wired for connection. We need our social circles, and those social circles can influence our happiness and our success. And as I said, even our lifespan. It is proven that we live longer with strong connections. So we are definitely social creatures. And of course, we all have our ups and downs. We all want to be on our own sometimes, some people more than others, but it stays so important to maintain and to have those social connections. And that's why it's so important to actually have the right people also. Some research I found was what is called Dunbar's number, and it is described by Robin Dunbar, who is an anthropologist, and he says that the human brain can maintain only 150 meaningful relationships at a time. And I was thinking, 150? That's quite a lot. But if you really think about it, if you start thinking about everyone you know, and 150 doesn't seem like that much, to be honest. And so that's what I kind of wanted to talk about with this episode, is to put quality over quantity. Just making sure that your life is filled with the right things. And that is what this podcast is all about filling your life with the right things, physically, mentally, spiritually, but also socially, which is what this episode is about. And yeah, so that's kind of the plan for today. I realized that I didn't mention my source, which gotta dig myself on the hand for that, because I'm a daughter of 2 historians, okay? I need to mention my sources. I said that our social circles can even impact our lifespan. That was actually a study at Harvard on adult development, which says that strong social bonds can increase our longevity. Just quickly wanted to put that out there. But so the problem that we are discussing in this episode is that a lot of people struggle to find their true tribe, if that makes sense. I think we go through life and we are surrounded by people that don't uplift us. It's not necessarily that they are dragging us down, but sometimes we feel misunderstood or out of place or even lonely when we're surrounded by a lot of people. And I'm not saying, just cut all of these people out of your life and separate yourself and, go and change your whole social circle. That's not what I'm saying. But I am trying to put the idea out there of being a little bit more mindful, because life is just too short to put yourself in situations that are not making you happy and that are not improving your well-being. So instead of forcing connections with those new people or cutting off very harshly people that no longer align with us. It is important to intentionally attract and cultivate the right people. Because especially at younger ages, which I know I'm quite young, I'm 19, I still go through so many phases and so many different interests. And, I'm still developing my mindset, and I change in views and in whatever it may be. And so obviously I click more with people now than I would have a couple of years ago, and the other way around as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. And again, I'm not saying cut those people out of your life. We're going to get all into supplementary and complementary friendships, but it is just a necessity for our social well-being that we have social connections that truly sustain us and truly make us happy. And that is what this episode is going to be about. I kind of ramble on there. I'm going to try not to do that too much. But yeah, I hope you're excited for the episode. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Avenly Collective, a podcast where we explore science and history to improve our lives. The Avenly Collective is the podcast for intelligent, elegant, and ambitious women who seek depth, sophistication, and transformation in every aspect of life. This show explores literature and blends it into actionable insights to apply to your life. The topics we discuss range from personal development and modern femininity to cultural commentary and overall timeless wisdom. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are not too familiar with the podcast, we always follow more or less the same structure. First, we dive into literature and fact-based knowledge, such as science, history, psychology, etc. And then we go into a little bit more of a philosophical-based approach, where we are a little bit looser, but also closer to our everyday life experience. Lastly, we close off with an action-based conclusion, where I give some tips and examples of implementing what we learned into our life, as it is proven in research that implementation is one of the strongest ways to learn. Alright, so the first big chunk of this episode, I don't want to call it a chunk, it sounds like I'm going to ramble on for hours, which I'm not going to, don't worry. I might ramble a little bit here and there, but I'll try and not make this episode 3 hours long. But the first thing I wanted to talk about was the science of compatibility. So what is the science behind us clicking with some people and not with others? By the way, I haven't mentioned in this episode, I am more so thinking about just regular platonic relationships. Could be romantic as well, but I'm more so thinking about just the social circle and our basic social network that we are interacting with every day. You could take these tips and apply them in a romantic context, but I think I can make a separate episode about that. But yeah. Anyways, why we click with some people and not with others. So the first thing, and this also just stresses that it's important that we be conscious and be mindful about who is around us, is that our brains mirror the emotions of those around us. Most of us know what it's like to have empathy, and of course we can feel our empathy very actively. But still, if we are not actively feeling that empathy doing its thing, subconsciously it can still really mirror the emotions around us. So if people are really negative and really low, they can just drag us down with us, even if we don't want to, which can either create harmony or friction. So as I said, if people are being very negative and dragging us down, that can create friction, especially if you're naturally a more happy, upbeat person, which I try to be certainly. So that can create harmony then with people who, like you, just lift each other up. And so that's why it's important, because we subconsciously still go with the group. We are group animals. We do what the group does. And so we naturally gravitate towards people who validate our emotions and our perspectives and reflect those as well, because that creates that harmony instead of that friction. And again, I'm not saying if one person is acting a little bit more negatively that you would like to immediately cut them out. Of course, being a good friend is also listening to their problems and being there for them. So don't be too harsh with people, but do be mindful. But if you do keep seeing on a pattern every single time you see them, it brings you into this different vibe, this different atmosphere that you just do not identify with anymore. Maybe it used to be your atmosphere, but you've kind of grown apart from it, which is totally normal. Do be mindful that it might be time to take a little bit of a distance, see how you feel, especially if those are people you are with every single day. Take a little bit of a distance and see if you feel much better, you know where it comes from. If you might suspect that their negativity is rubbing off on you, take some distance and see how you feel. And again, just not a one-time negativity, but do be mindful about people who are just constantly dragging you down. You want people in the end who are validating your emotions and perspectives, like I said. And as I said, also, you want to be the person who does that as well. If they have those negative emotions and perspectives, you don't want to say, oh, come on, cheer up, be positive. You're being way too negative. We want to validate. We want to say, okay, I understand how you're feeling. I get where you're coming from. And then depending on the situation, you can try and switch their mood around or give them those new perspectives that you might have. I know it kind of depends. Some people just want a listening ear. Some people want advice that's for you to kind of feel. But in the end, they need to validate your emotions and your perspectives as well. And if they make you feel not seen, not heard, or like you don't belong, that's a very big red flag, and that's something to think about. Something to illustrate this is the big 5 personality traits from psychology. And there are obviously 5 big personality traits. I'm going to talk more about the 2 major things that I apply here, and that is that friendships last longer when personality traits are aligned or complementary. So they here say aligned or complementary. I really like supplementary or complementary. So supplementary is basically when they just supplement what's already there. They have the same mindset as you, the same personality traits. You just kind of build upon each other, which can be very strengthening, which can be very uplifting also when they're quote-unquote good traits. But complementary friends can be so valuable as well, because they can give you other experiences and other perspectives that you normally wouldn't have. And to illustrate this with an example, my best friend of all time, I won't mention her name on here because I don't know if she would like to stay anonymous, but we are so different. I've known her since birth and we've always been different, and we still are. We are, I think, growing further and further from each other every day, not in social connection, but in interests and what part of life we are in. So she is an astrophysics student, and she plays in a band, and she's absolutely awesome. Okay, I'm her biggest supporter. But in contrast to that, I'm a business student and I spend most of my free time in the gym and cooking and, you know, maybe a little bit more on myself. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I love hanging out with her because I just get this new perspective on life that without her, you know, 9 times out of 10, I probably wouldn't have those perspectives. So supplementary and complementary friends, I like to have a little bit of a mix. So firstly, as I said, from the big 5 personality traits, I'm going to discuss 2. So first, extroverts and introverts. So again, if you're aligned, 2 extroverts can just really go out and, you know, hype each other up and just be in such a high energy. And then 2 introverts can really calm each other down, and, you know, they don't really even have to talk. They can just read a book. And you might have noticed that for both extroverts and introverts, I said they, because I truly am in between, and I think a lot of people are in between, and it just kind of depends. There are some people who can really open me up and make me very extroverted, and I can get so passionate about a certain topic that I can talk about it for hours, I say, while recording a podcast. But there are other people who can bring me down, and I'm not saying bring me down in a negative way. I'm actually saying bring me down back to earth, to the present moment, and be a little bit more calm. And yeah, so it's good to have like a supplementary of both. It's good to have a mix of both. So both supplementary and complementary, I believe, in extrovert and introvert friends. Just again, that mix can really add more layers to life and more perspectives. Yeah, so incredibly interesting. And then second, I wanted to talk about open-minded versus traditional people. And I'm not just saying this like in terms of politics or whatever, even though I won't get into politics on this podcast. I will keep myself out of it. I do not want to get canceled. But, there are naturally differences in people's morals and views on life. And for the longest time, and I know a lot of people who do this too, and who still do this, is to, when someone has a different perspective than them, they immediately cross them out mentally, and it's just no way that they would ever get along in any different field than that. I think complementary based on morals and views can be very beneficial. You kind of want to find that balance between, obviously not the other side of the spectrum where they can't see you, you can't see them, and you just feel so far. But I do think that opposites can inspire growth, but too much difference causes friction. So it's good to have kind of a balance. It's a good thing to have kind of a balance between the two. So jumping off of that, I talked about values and morals. Obviously, you can say, okay, well, most of the time I just find people who have the same interests in me, and it kind of goes further because of that. That's such a good way to do it. I think shared interests are so good, hobbies, music taste, whatever it might be. But interests often are quite surface level. It's like surface level compatibility. That's like level 1, you could say. And then level 2 are those values, those morals, life goals, emotional intelligence. That is that deep-rooted alignment. And so long-term connections thrive when your values are stronger and much more compatible than your interests. And again, to go back to my illustration of me and my best friend, we might not share the same interests. We study things that are not aligned at all. We do very different things with our life, but our morals and our values are still intertwined. And I think that's what makes us such a good fit. And I think that's what can make a lot of people a good fit. So that is what I'm saying with having a little bit of variety and diversity in your social circle and in your social network. And yeah, so don't just think, for example, for me, right? If I meet someone new and they go to the gym, I immediately think I'm immediately kind of connecting with them because I'm like, you kind of have the same interests as me, whatever. But it can still just stay stuck there because the values don't align. And that is a very difficult friendship to maintain. While the other way around, having your values aligned but maybe different interests, kind of just flows naturally. What I do experience with friendships like this, where you click really well and you're more complementary than supplementary, so your interests and just the way you experience life is just so different, I do find that it's harder to see each other. Like, I see my best friend maybe not as much as a lot of people might think, especially if I say, oh, she's my best friend, I've known her since birth, whatever. I see her less than what I might suppose to do. I don't know how to exactly frame it, but it's hard for sure, a complementary friendship, because it's hard to find something that you connect over, because she will not come to the gym with me. I can do my fair share of math, but I am just not going into an astrophysics class. So, I did go to a concert of her band and I really did enjoy myself. You need to put more effort into finding things to do together. But when you get together, it's so valuable. And that's what I wanted to give away with this section. So compatibility is not just clicking on every single aspect of life, but it's also having that diversity and those new perspectives. And I think that is actually what makes a friendship not feel plain. So quick recap, we mirror the emotions of those around us, which can create either harmony or friction. And based on our personality traits, we can find friends who are supplementary or complementary. And we can find people through shared interests, but in the end, it's the shared values that really makes those long-term connections thrive. Next, we'll talk about how to identify your type of people. So the people you're actually want to align with and want to have in your life, which I think is just such an interesting topic. It's kind of a step-by-step list, you could say. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, how to identify your type of people. So step one, and I know this is going to sound cliche. So step one is know yourself first. And the question that might pop up, that at least did so for me, is, well, do we ever really know ourselves? Isn't that kind of the journey of life, to find ourselves? And are we not constantly in change? And to that I say yes. I think so. I think I change every single day, and I think that's what makes life exciting. But making sure you do know your core values, your morals, also your interests, can help you find the people that either supplement or complement those nicely. So a way that I really like to do this is with journaling or with meditation. What I like to do when I'm journaling or when I'm thinking about it, about a new circle of friends or whatever it might be, is to focus on feeling. I think one of the things that is so powerful is being able to go inside yourself and feel what you feel what you crave to feel. And again, that might sound very spiritual, but being in line with yourself is truly a passion of mine and a goal of mine, which brings so many things with it. Again, I feel myself trailing off, so back to journaling. One thing you can ask yourself is, what kind of person makes you feel the most yourself? What kind of conversations energize you? And what traits drain you the most? Those are 3 questions that you can reflect upon. So yeah, that's step 1, know yourself. Again, journaling or meditation can really help with that. Step 2 would be recognizing healthy versus unhealthy connections. So again, I'm always open-minded, even if someone in the beginning feels a bit different than myself. Obviously, it has to go to a certain level. Sometimes you just feel it in your gut, like this person is not my kind of person. I'm still very friendly towards them, and I would never make them feel anything less than, but I wouldn't actively try to plan something with them or anything. Anyways, branching off, recognizing healthy versus unhealthy connections. When you are, especially in those newer stages of friendship, it's important to see if this is a friendship worth pursuing, because obviously we have a limited amount of energy and we want to make sure that we put it in the right people. That doesn't mean that with friendships you already have, if you do see some of these signs, it might be time to rethink a bit about where your priorities lie. Again, not saying you immediately need to cut them out, but it is something to maybe bring to their attention, to make sure that the friendship can grow forward. And if it cannot, then you can split your ways as well. But so good, healthy connections, they challenge you to grow without making you feel inadequate. I think that is one of the biggest things that I was lacking, and that you feel safe and that you feel like you can be vulnerable. Of course, that vulnerable part might come a little bit later, especially if you have some trust issues or anything, but it's important to feel like it's a safe space. You're not feeling judged, you're not feeling inadequate. If you feel, this is for all of the big personality people out there, like me. I used to struggle with it a lot, that I thought I was too much. If you feel like you need to shrink yourself to fit in, figuratively, of course, that is a big old red flag. If you feel like, okay, I need to quiet down, or I need to just stop saying anything, I need to, whatever it may be, if you feel like you need to shrink who you are to fit in, there's a door, run the other way. If you leave interactions feeling emotionally drained, again, there's a door. Again, sometimes you can feel emotionally drained, and it doesn't mean that you should end a friendship. Like if that friend's going through a hard time, you should be able to, or you should, as a good friend, be there for them. And it can drain you emotionally just because they have to rely on you to be able to tell how they're feeling, and to be able to just have a shoulder to cry on, obviously. But I believe that, and it's different for everyone, you should kind of be able to feel that for yourself. If you are leaving an interaction with just like this heavy feeling, tiredness, negativity, that should be a red flag. I aim to leave my social interactions feeling happy, feeling inspired, trying to distinguish that, trying to feel how interactions with certain people make you feel, and what, not only certain people, but also what type of interactions. That's also just self-knowledge, is knowing what fills you emotionally instead of draining you. And then the last thing, the third step, is the future self-test. So right now you should kind of know who you are, what you crave, what you value in a friendship, and hopefully should be able to recognize healthy and unhealthy connections, both now in the friends that you already have and some future friends that you may have, or some future social connections, I should say, maybe. And so the third step now is the future self-test. So again, especially if you're trying to become better yourself, and I'm not just saying like, oh, I have like these big goals. It's just, growing in life. Can be anything, growing your intelligence, growing your physical state, growing your spirituality. Surround yourself with people who feel like it's you, but the next level. If you are, for example, if I can make this religious for just 2 seconds, if you are just getting into Christianity, it can be very valuable to have a friend who is already further on their journey, who can advise you and uplift you to grow towards your next level. And I think that's just an amazing feeling. I do love being the person who is the next level, if that makes sense. I have a lot of friends who want to try out in the gym, and they come with me for their first time, and I kind of show them around, and I love that. But if I only do that, I'm not saying they're dragging me down, but there's no one lifting me up, if that makes sense. So it's important to also have people that you look up to. If you admire those people, you're likely on the right path towards a good friendship. And I think, obviously I love optimizing stuff. So like the optimal friendship, according to this little block of the episode, this little section, would be someone who is further advanced than you in a certain area, but you then also bring other perspectives and other advancement in another area, and you can kind of just push each other and develop each other and become better. And I think that is just something that sounds absolutely divine. And that's why this is kind of future self and self-improvement and growth focused. While for you it might sound very different, but in the end it's the same thing. Like if you're not thinking about, okay, I want to like improve myself, whatever, I just want to, be a little bit more calm and I want to read more books. Surround yourself with people who are calm and read more books. It's the same thing, it doesn't have to be as gym and nutrition and spirituality and whatever it may be, intelligence based as me. It can be whatever you want, but finding something that people are, even if it's just a little bit better at or just have more experience with than you, can be so beneficial, especially if it's just like a tad different from what you want to do, because again, then you have that different perspective, which is just absolutely amazing. Anyway, I think I've rambled on enough for this part of the podcast. Next, we're going to get into where to find your people. So beyond work and family, of course. Yeah, let's get into it. Okay, where to find your people beyond work and family. So the first thing, and it might sound a bit familiar to you, is online communities and niche communities. So obviously there are things like Reddit and Facebook groups and meetups and people who find their thing online. But if you can't find a space that fits or you feel comfortable with, you can create one. If you haven't laid down the connection yet, this podcast is me kind of aiming to do that. I am not in any way trying to go viral and do all of this stuff, but I am aiming to reach people, to reach like-minded people, and us just to all be able to hype each other up. It sounds so amazing to me, and that's why I asked to rate the podcast, to leave a review, to share it with friends, just because obviously I want to grow this community not only broadly but more so deeply, and I want to find and connect people that can all just help each other out. And of course this podcast is more than that, but I do think it's much more important, again, that quality over quantity. This is research every week that I would be interested in and I would never actually do because I wouldn't find any reason to do it other than for myself. And so for me, this podcast is kind of letting myself do this research and then also to be able to share it with people that are hopefully a little bit interested and not just my mom listening to support me. Go mom, thanks. But yeah, that's kind of the idea. So you can find it online. I know it's not as convenient for a lot of people to create a podcast. So as I mentioned, Reddit, Facebook groups, meetups, things like that. But I personally am not that big of a fan of online things, like especially meeting strangers. I guess I have a bit of trust issues in that. But so that's one thing I've written down. I have other things as well. A big thing that I think is just go on side quests and just have zero shame, because what is the chance that you will actually see any of those people again? And if you do, don't feel ashamed, you were just being yourself. And if they can appreciate that, then they're boring. I said it. So yeah, basically how I wrote it down, which is a little bit more formal, a little bit more well explained than what I just did, is interest-based networking. Yes. So basically side quests. So obviously you have shallow things, like shallow based networking, which is going to bars, going to parties, or just random social outings. You can kind of meet people there and you hope you click, and who knows, you can meet a very, very valuable new connection to your life. What you can also do is deep networking, so deep interest-based networking, which would be if you're interested in books, book clubs, creative workshops, niche interest groups is basically what I'm trying to get across here. Trying out things that interest you, and who knows who you'll meet, just going on side quests. I think that is something I want to make an episode about, and that's something that I want to do myself. Just going to a pottery class on a random Wednesday afternoon, why would I not? And just like meet random people, why would I not? And go to a museum alone, and maybe there is someone standing looking at my favorite painting, and I think you and I, same mind. Anyways, both of these can lead to connections, both the shallow and the deep networking. But I think the more deep you go, the more you surround yourself with the people you're interested in, because it's based on an interest you have, and therefore has more ability to foster those meaningful and those long-term relationships. So, I mean, it kind of depends. I guess bars and parties could be your deep interest-based networking if you are looking for people to go out with every night and to play drinking games with. Then that could be your deep interest-based network. So again, it looks different for everyone. This is just kind of what I jotted down. But yeah, the last thing I wanted to talk about is a little bit of a mindset shift. So, and kind of this scarcity versus abundance mindset, and obviously about friendships. So I think a very, very, again, it was so interesting to do the research and everything. I always say this. I should stop saying this. I hope I get across that I really love making this podcast. And yeah. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so how can we attract, not chase, connections? The first thing is authenticity is a magnet, okay? So what I noticed is I always looked up to people who were a certain way, or just to like an aesthetic or an atmosphere of a person, and I could not just admire, I wanted to be, because I did not accept who I was. And that's a very deep topic. What I'm trying to say is I am now getting more comfortable. Of course, the question, do I ever get 100% there? Probably not. That is also just, life and discovering who you are. But I'm trying to embrace my quirks and my passions and my truth. And being aligned with yourself can make other aligned people gravitate towards you. I know it is easy to put on a mask and to be different than you are, because it's easier and because you think people will like you more. But in the end, even if you do succeed, the people like you for the mask and they don't like you for you. Everything just felt 1,000 times harder. If you can go into a conversation or just meet someone new and you can just be and just let yourself be. And option A is they, make eye contact and they look genuinely interested, and then you just feel so good because you're like, they're interested in me. Like, I'm being me and they're interested in me. And then, the other version is that they clearly are not showing interest. And at that point, I'm just like, you don't know what you're missing out on, okay? You're lost, kind of. If you are that comfortable with who you are, if you are that secure in yourself, you can go so far. That brings me to this second point, is what I said, like the scarcity and abundance mindset. So the scarcity mindset is, I have to hold on to whoever I have, because if I let go of who I have now, I have nobody. that is that scarcity mindset. And that's why we often put on the mask and put on distractions if we feel that people are growing away from us or we are growing away from them. We try to hold on, and this often drives people further away, or this just drives your own happiness further away, which is, in my opinion, even worse. Because you're not aligned with yourself and you're not accepting yourself for what change you're going through or just who you are, because you've been ignoring and trying to get around who you truly are this whole time. And it is important to get out of that scarcity mindset and get into the abundance mindset. There are so many people on this world, like 8 billion people, and you think the friends you have to hold on to because otherwise you'll have no one. Look around you. We have infiltrated this planet. We are with there are so many people out there who are perfect for you. So don't think about trying to stay in the status quo. It's about getting yourself out of that comfort zone. New experiences, new people, new everything. And when you switch that mindset, everything starts kind of falling. All the dominoes just fall. It is never too late. You didn't mess anything up. It was just a step of life that got you to this place, okay? And so lastly, I know you've all been waiting for this section, is the conclusion, OUPA. But again, as I said before, my conclusion is always action-based, things that you can do to really implement what we learned today into your everyday life, which is so important. So yeah, I feel like I've talked for a while, so let's get to the conclusion. And yeah, I'm excited. Okay, so the conclusion, how to strengthen and maintain meaningful friendships. So, first thing is like if we kind of go in our timeline, right, from finding someone new to, maintaining the friendship or potentially ending it if it's draining you. So first would be initiate, don't wait. Reach out first, invite, plan. I sometimes see this girl in my gym and I think that we could be such good friends. But I never go to her. She never goes to me. Like, we make eye contact sometimes. Kind of in a way that's like, you know what's up. But we never... So maybe the next time I see her, I will initiate. I will walk up to her. That's a promise. The next time I see her, I will say hi. I will give a compliment. And then feel the vibe. So, yeah. Because obviously if no one does it, nothing ever happens. So be the one that initiates and don't be scared to be rejected, okay? If those people reject you, then that's just a sign that not meant to be. That's fine. Again, abundance mindset. There are so many people out there who will say yes. So don't let it ruin your day. Initiate. See where life takes you. Secondly, be a good friend first. Listen deeply and celebrate their wins. I am a big talker. No wonder I have a podcast. But I am truly grateful to be so in love with how my life is and to be able to grow every single way. A big thing is actually by doing this research, by finding out new things about life and about myself. And I always just want to share that with people. I think in that way, I'm very extroverted, in that I love to share things with people, and I'm so passionate about, new discoveries and whatever it may be. I'm just so passionate and I want to share it with people that I sometimes just forget to ask about them. And so this bullet point might be the opposite for you. I mean, obviously, do still be a good friend, but I know there are people who don't say anything, and I'm someone who says too much, and I know that, and I'm not saying to myself, speak less because you're annoying, you're saying too much, they don't need to know all of this, whatever it may be. What I'm saying to myself is, I love that you're so passionate, And I love that you have so much to share. I love that you are so happy with your life, but they probably are as well. And if they're not, they could still benefit greatly from sharing their experiences with you. So it's important to be a good friend. It's important to listen to what they have to say. And at the end, given that none of you die tomorrow, there are going to be other conversations where you can still say it. Like, sometimes I feel like, oh, I want to say this, and I want to say this, and I want to say this, and you all need to know this, and you need to know all of this in order to, know what's going on with me, and, updates and whatever. But in the end, it's like, take a breath. And again, that is that self-knowledge, knowing what you crave, but also know what you can bring to the table. So yeah, be a good friend first, listen deeply, and celebrate their wins. Thirdly, accept seasonal friendships. Some connections aren't meant to last forever, and that's okay. I heard this, it's not really a quote, it's a metaphor. And I don't know where I heard it, actually, but it is basically that your life is like an elevator, and, it keeps going up, and people walk in and they walk out, and that's just their destination. And so don't get into that scarcity mindset and not let them get out of the elevator, and try to bring them up with you. If they don't want to be brought up, they will rather bring you down than be brought up. That is, like I'm telling you, that is so hard to accept. And especially when it's a very good friend and you are very close, you spend a lot of time together, or, with a romantic partner, it can be very hard when that ends. And it is truly an art. And I'm not saying that any of this is supposed to be easy and, whatever. But it is truly an art to say, okay, this chapter is over, and I'm so grateful that this happened. It has changed my perspective. It has brought me to this moment. And my mind is open for this new chapter. Try to let go and to view the friendship as what it was. It was a friendship. Might have ended bad, might have just grown apart, whatever it may be. Try to not disform the whole time you had with that person based on that last moment. Accept seasonal friendships. Some friends just aren't meant to last forever, and that's okay. And then lastly, what I've been really trying to get across is to check your energy, to check inside. What often happens is that people try to think with their mind. They're like, oh yeah, but this friend, like, we don't have the same interests, whatever. No. Bring that out of your mind and go to your core. Do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel energized with this person? Do you feel safe? Do you feel comfortable? If you are always feeling drained, it is time to reevaluate the relationship. Depending on how long the relationship has been going on, you can either end it, you can try and find a conclusion, but anyways, you need to do something to change it, okay? You need to talk with them, whatever it may be, because you are so used to people draining your energy that's what you think social connection is, but it's not. And then when you find a person that just totally brings you to that next level and makes you feel energized and inspired and all of those good emotions, God, you don't ever want to go back. So, and I wish that for every single one of you, that you can find friends who are like that. So finding your people is about quality, not quantity, and growth happens in the right environments. Make sure you surround yourself with those who inspire you. So a challenge for you this week, okay? This podcast normally goes out every Thursday evening. So for the next week, so from Friday morning until Thursday night the next week, make a conscious effort this week to engage with new or existing people in a way that aligns with your values. So either if you feel, I don't really know with the people I already have what to do, find a new person. Like I said, my challenge is, if I see a girl again, I'm going to go up to her, I'm going to give her a compliment. Who knows? For you, that might be, okay, well, I have this really good friend, but we barely see each other. Then your challenge is make time for that friend and make a conscious effort to actually schedule a time you can get together and talk again, because that's so important. So yeah, the right people exist. You just have to make space for them. That was this episode. I hope you enjoyed. I definitely feel always so good after recording a podcast. I would love to continue this conversation. You can find me over on TikTok or Instagram, so feel free to contact me there if you need someone to talk with. I'm always open. And yeah, I really loved this episode. I hope you guys did too. And I will see you in the next one. Have a nice week, everybody. Bye.